Last year, it was a flood of biblical proportions in Pakistan. Like 1/3 of the country went underwater. And because of that, about 7,000 additional schools got swept away. And we now expect the population of out-of-school children to have jumped up to about close to 40 million, which is huge. My name is Haroon Yasin, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Taleemabad, which is Urdu for Education City. It's an edtech company and has now reached about 10 million children in Pakistan.
We met at the World Innovation Summit for Education, also known as WISE.
Lots and lots of different models that we use. For example, there are smaller models coming in, Falcon 7B, and others that are really, really fast, but also very soon would possibly also run offline, which is a big requirement for working in the communities that we work in.
The conference is held in the small Middle Eastern country of Qatar, and this year's theme, like every conference everywhere, was AI.
We're showing people the tools that we've built, and we're showing them how to build them. We're open sourcing all of our technology and telling everyone the exact lines of code to write, exact models and exact LLMs to use, so that more people can do this. Because every single time there's been an economic upheaval in the world, some new technology, some new aspect, when the internet came in, or when the computers came in, or the smartphones came in, half of the population in the world get left behind. This is another one of those upheavals with AI. And I think this time we shouldn't make that same mistake.
In the latest installment of our oral history project, we continue to look at the potential for edtech to help children in crisis receive an education. Throughout this series, we'll be featuring the stories of breakthroughs and other key moments in emerging tech, as told by those who witnessed them. I'm Jennifer Strong, and this is Shift.
Now here on the steering column is a device called Auto Cruise. You simply set the speed you want.
Self-driving robo-taxis are already on the road in 2 U.S. cities.
As the disc rotates, a mirror reflects the light in the way that depends on how the signal was recorded.
This is the 100 terabyte I present to you Electro, the Moto Man.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I would say that one of my greatest skills is my ability to interact with humans.
Hackers and cybercriminals have always held this kind of special fascination.
Obviously, I can't tell you too much about what I do.
It's a game. Who's the best hacker? And I was like, well, this is child's play.
I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and on the Click Here podcast, you'll meet them and the people trying to stop them.
We're not afraid of the attack. We're afraid of the creativity and the intelligence of the human being behind it.
Click Here, stories about the people making and breaking our digital world.
AI machines, satellite, engine ignition,
click here,
and liftoff.
Every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
I feel like if we always thought of climate change and education and inequality and poverty and economic development as separate issues. But I think the confluence of all of those things, that either great change happens or great tragedy happens, and we're rooting for the former. Pakistan and India are like 80 different countries stitched together. If they were cut up like Europe is, there would be lots of countries, right? Of the women that graduate in Pakistan, about 30% of them never work. And so imagine completing your graduation and spending quite a lifetime on learning in a country in which it is very difficult already to graduate. But even after graduation, they don't work because there are not enough jobs and there are cultural stereotypes. What we simply do is very similar to Airbnb. We go to these women, we say, hey, if you've got a spare room in your house, how about you set up a school? We will be responsible for bringing you parents, and you will be responsible for using your mobile phone. And their mobile phone has like a small teleprompter that tells them, now teach this and now teach this. And it's planned for the whole academic year. What ends up happening is this woman who was previously unemployed opens a school, earns a living. The kids in the community which don't have access to good education for like $2 or $3 get access to world-class education. and schools begin to sprout up like mushrooms all across. Insofar as there is an adult, a consenting adult, and kids, there can be a school. And so some of the most fascinating stories have emerged from this now. One of our schools is inside a cancer hospital. And I had the same reaction to it as well. And we discovered it only after it had been set up, but it's set up inside the pediatric oncology ward, where children who are undergoing chemotherapy, of course, they can't go to normal schools because the chemotherapy knocks them out from like 8 in the morning to pretty much 10 in the evening. And so these kids only wake up at like midnight when everybody else is asleep. And we went there and we saw this school because the hospital invited us. Their teacher is a nurse on night duty, and she uses a mobile phone. When I first went in, I said, "Who's the teacher?" And she said, "Well, I am, of course." And I said, "Well, but you're a nurse." And she's like, "I'm a teacher." And she was using the mobile app and the content and the teleprompter to teach. And the kids were casually walking in at midnight, and the school ran from midnight to 5 a.m. I think the definition of what schooling, what we've imagined to be a school, like rows and rows of kids sitting and like somebody talking at them, has radically changed. Now we see them under trees in some communities and some rural villages, and it's run by women entrepreneurs who are the principal, teacher, the administrator, and all of it on their own. And it could also be a nurse. And I think that is really opening up some fantastic doors, because when it begins to be a source of living for someone, when it becomes a platform that empowers someone to radically change their own lives and change somebody else's life, that's when it really starts to become a movement. And that's the fun part, I think. There are lots and lots of different models that we use. For example, there's stable diffusion that we build and customize on top of to build image generation models that customize relevant images. Then we use Runway and Pika to be able to animate those. And then at the heart of it, we started using GPT and training GPT on all of the pedagogical material that we've written over the last decade, but also realizing that GPT is kind of expensive and clunky. And so now there are smaller models coming in, Falcon 7B and others that are really, really fast, but also don't compromise that much on quality, and very soon would possibly also run offline, which is a big requirement for working in the communities that we work in. And so we take these models, we train them, we stitch them together. For example, one tool that we've built, it first uses like a text generation model to write a script about how something should be taught. It then uses another model to pretend to be a director and take that script and convert it into a series of visuals. And there is another model that picks those visuals up and sort of moves them. So let's say if I'm teaching you physics and I'm teaching you like how like a pendulum swings, the first model will just spit out like the actual science behind how the pendulum swings. The second model will generate images of it. The third model will make them move. And the fourth model actually, which is, a range of different models, some of them also coming out of China now, they will take the script, do an amazing voiceover, and stitch it all together. So just like you go to a vending machine, in the future, a kid could go to their phone and say, I just want to learn this today. And every single time they'd get like a new piece of content, and they could watch it and they could pause it and they could change it and they could modify it. Let's say that you were born in a household that speaks Urdu and your teacher speaks Punjabi, and your exam is in English. That's a very real scenario in some of the places that we come from. Or let's say you were born in a Spanish-speaking family, and then you move to a school that speaks English. It is possible now, as of today, to just talk to your phone and say half of the stuff in Urdu or Spanish or half the stuff in English and say, please, will you speak with me? My English is broken. Help me. And you could say it in Urdu or Spanish or any other language. And you'll have a patient tutor who will talk to you for hours and hours and hours. I think one of the biggest problems is that if you're a poor kid, when you go back home, there's no Cartoon Network or HBO, or your mom doesn't talk to you in the language that the rest of the country is talking in. So your exposure to the language is also very low. And so these tools give the opportunity for like super patient, super personalized tutors to be in the hands of students. I don't know if you've taught before, but if you've taught, grading and checking exams is a nightmare. My goodness, it is a slog. And it takes away from the time that you can spend with the kids. If you have 40 kids in your class, you want to talk to them. You want to spend time with them. You don't want to be checking papers all the time. And so we built a tool that allows teachers to like go through piles of papers, and that frees up more time for the teacher to spend with the kids. That tool is very popular. Yesterday we showed that tool and then showed how that tool is built. And today, at the start of our session, we're doing a song in Arabic, and we're asking people to guess which one was human and which one was AI. Whenever we've run this test, everybody's flunked it. I mean, and then we're sort of opening the hood and showing people how it's built so that these people can start building too. There's not a lot of content in Arabic, unfortunately. And so maybe they get to build that.
We'll be back right after this.
Because you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming you're interested in staying on top of the latest trends, news, and more. So I want to tell you about another show. It's called Web3 with A16Z Crypto, but it's really about the future of the internet, future of creators, future of business, future of the way we work and live. It's for anyone seeking to understand the latest tech trends direct from experts with high insights per minute, given your time and attention are so valuable. Follow Web3 with A16Z in your podcast app now.
So, I mean, at the core of it, if you remember going to school, for a lot of kids, you don't wake up at 7 in the morning completely itching to be in school, you know? It's a drag, and we drag our feet to school. For something that we dedicate half of our lives to, it shouldn't be that way. Also for children in poverty, if they wake up, don't like it, they have to earn for their family, they have a million other priorities for themselves, they have to survive, sometimes floods, sometimes droughts. And so for these kids, engagement becomes almost like a necessity, not a luxury. And so at the core of it, what we do is we take the national curriculum of whichever place we're working in. Because we're all teachers in the team, all of us have taught in all kinds of places. I've taught in the US. I studied in the US. I've taught in the Middle East, in Pakistan, in public schools, private schools, home schools. And we take what we've learned from teaching and we convert it into like games and cartoons and animations. And then, you know, it's a very strange thing. In Pakistan, a huge number of children, like I said, are out of school. But in the same country, about 70% of the population now has access to a smartphone and internet. It's one of the cheapest places on the planet to use a smartphone and the internet. When I was in the US, for a T-Mobile plan, I would skip a meal often because it was like $30, $40, you know. In Pakistan, for $1, you get enough internet to last you a month. And so that should tell you something about how cheap it is to use the internet in Pakistan. And the same thing with television. You know, 98% of Pakistanis, even those in poverty, have access to public broadcast television. It costs you $50 actually to access public broadcast television. And so if those rails are present, the idea is simple. You make that material and you send it out across airwaves that can reach as many people as possible. And that's sort of the methodology that we've used to get to 10 million children. But I think the most exciting part comes now. You can't go 100 kilometers in Pakistan without changing the language or changing the context. And so one of the things that has happened now is that firstly, within Pakistan, for our translation of material into like Punjabi or Sindhi or Pashto, we're using AI to do that. I kid you not. I'll give you a recording of my voice singing a song in Urdu with all of the great aspects of singing, and I don't sing, but it's AI generated. Nobody can tell the difference. And so basically what we're doing is using that to generate contextualized, customized material for each kid. I think it will be possible in the next decade or so to produce learning material from one part of the world that could rapidly be consumed in another part of the world, because it will be customized and changed in real time to suit the language and the context of the learner or the person who's watching or consuming that content. And so when that begins to happen, I do think that is going to become a great equalizer in education. I think one of the most interesting implications of the whole deployment of AI has been to make it invisible. And why I think that needs to be emphasized is because if children were literate enough from the point of view of education, if they were literate enough to ask the right questions or to chat in long chats, they would have Googled stuff a long time ago. They don't have that capability. And so I think where this needs to go is that, can it become invisible enough? One of the experiments that we ran, for example, was that we just placed a phone in the middle of a classroom and we took the permission of the teacher and the parents and we said, this phone will just record all day. And then we put that stuff into a model and said, which kid is struggling? And now it begins to tell the teacher, hey, John sounded really fatigued today. and Jane gave the wrong answer for this one. Overall, you might want to repeat that lesson. It is invisible technology. Nobody's chatting into it. Nobody's writing into it. But it is, at the same time, just sitting in that background, helping students learn better, helping teachers learn better, amplifying human agency, which I think is the most important thing. A lot of people are trying to just take a brush and paint AI, and this has happened 50 million times in the last 2 decades, in which some new technology comes and we're like, this will replace teachers. And I think we hold the firm belief, even as technologists, that it will not. Insofar as it can amplify human agency, I think these tools will do a great job, but they need to become a bit more invisible, a bit more behind the scenes.
This show is produced by me and Anthony Green with help from Emma Cillekens. It's mixed by Garret Lang with original music from him and Jacob Gorski. Thanks for listening. I'm Jennifer Strong.